Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Victor from the Star Events team, and I'm glad to be your host for tonight's session. Thank you for joining us today for the inaugural webinar on the China series. This series will allow Malaysians to have a better understanding of China and its abundance of investment opportunities for business conglomerates. It also aims to showcase the technological advancement and potential of local innovation tapping into the China market. On that note, we'd like to thank Amilus Corporations Berhad for coming on board to kick off this series. All right, a few quick housekeeping matters before we begin. This 1 hour session is streamed live on Starbiz Facebook page, so thank you to everyone who's tuning in tonight. Do share our Starbiz Facebook Live with your colleagues and friends who are keen to join. As everyone dials into this webinar through different internet bandwidth or devices, you may or may not experience minor technical glitches. So please be patient if there's any. To minimize the risk of technical glitch, all participants are muted, video cam turned off, and chat box disabled by default. But do participate by posting questions to our panel. On your user panel, click on the Q&A button and post your questions if you are using Zoom, or place it in the comment section if you are watching via FB Live. There will be a short survey at the end, so please do take a few minutes to complete it. Your opinion really matters to us. Lastly, and more importantly, please engage, learn, and enjoy. For this exciting session tonight, we have the pleasure of having Datuk Sri Wong Siu Hai, champion of E&E Productivity Nexus and chairman of Malaysian American Electronics Industry. He has 29 years of working experience in the electronics industry. He served as a member of the board of directors of the Malaysian External Trade Development Corporation, MATRADE, under the Ministry of International Trade and Industry, MITI, for 12 years and was the chair of its audit committee. He is also a member of PERMUDA, a special task force comprising of public and private sector to address public delivery effectiveness and to improve Malaysia's competitiveness. With that, I'd like to hand over to Datuk Sri Wong to begin the session. Dr. Sri?
Thank you. Thank you very much, Victor. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome for tuning in to today's webinar on the China series, Creating a Golden Opportunity in Semiconductors. I'm Dr. Sri Wong Siu Hai. I'm glad to be your moderator for tonight's session. I hope tonight's session will be beneficial to all of you, whether you're planning to venture into China or trying to attract investors from China. I believe you'll be able to gain some informative insights from our panelists. Tonight, we have some heavyweights who are well known in their respective fields. We will obtain an overview of the current economic outlook in China and how it will affect foreign investors. We will also deep dive into competing locally in China and whether your business is fit to dive into the ecosystem. We will also gain an understanding of the business culture in China and how to attract investors from China. Before I start, let me put the semiconductor and the E&E industry in perspective. Semiconductors provide the foundation for the global electronics industry, which is more than $2 trillion. They covers from computers, mobile phones, cloud computing, memory and storage, artificial intelligence, automation, medical equipment, and so on. The semicon worldwide sales in 2019 was $419 billion, and the 2020 sales expected to fall below $400 billion due to the unprecedented COVID-19 pandemic. Semiconductor is ubiquitous, and it has changed the way we learn, live, work, and play. The recent pandemic accelerated online commerce, banking, meetings, learning, and the implementation of Industry 4.0. In Malaysia, the E&E industry is a major engine of growth for the country's economy. It contributed to 38% of total exports, GDP's contribution of 6.3%, and employment of 560,000 people. The E&E Productivity Nexus under MPC, Malaysian Productivity Corporation, is focusing on the E&E industry not only to improve productivity, but also to grow the industry and move it up the value chain. With that, it is with my pleasure to introduce our three speakers for tonight. Dr. Cheong Kee Chok, Senior Advisor, Asia-Europe Institute at University of Malaya. Ng Sang Beng, CEO of Emulus Corporation, Sdn Bhd. And Dr. Sri Lee Ka Chun, Special Investment Advisor to Chief Minister of Penang. Let's begin the session with Dr. Cheong. Dr. Cheong is currently a Senior Advisor, Asia-Europe Institute at University of Malaya, and obtained his PhD from London School of Economics. He spent 16 years with the World Bank, being the coordinator for China and Vietnam in the Economic Development Institute. Upon returning to Malaysia, he continued as a consultant for the bank and United Nations agencies. He currently co-authored books and published numerous papers in the top tiers academic journal. Dr. Cheong, please share with us some economic updates of China and the impact of COVID-19 on China's economy.
This question.
Over to you.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. Let me spend a few minutes to give you an update of what's happening in China as I see it. First, even 2 years before the virus hit, China has entered what is called the new normal. And this new normal is made up of a few things. First, lower growth. Secondly, but higher quality growth. In other words, growth is more balanced than the way it was going before. And it was more conscious about environment and things like that. And third, the fact is, it is driven more by the domestic economy than by exports. Before that, China was more export driven rather than domestic economy driven. Now, the other feature that is important was that China is trying to manage a better rural-urban balance so that even the rural sectors tend to grow a bit faster than before. So this new normal actually reduces the impact of the virus on China because it was already growing less fast. The other thing that has reduced impact is the fact that this virus actually struck around Chinese New Year. The Chinese New Year is a period of very slow growth, and so these several factors basically help mitigate the impact of the virus. Another factor that now is impacting affecting China less is the fact that China has been moving transactions online even well before the viruses. These transactions been moving online much faster than in the US and in other countries. Now, these three things actually make for reduce the impact of the virus on China. Another thing I want to point out is this very infamous Made in China 2025. You know, this was actually to some extent what made the US upset. You know, the US was not really aware that China has gone up so fast, but this Made in China 2025 and identified 10 industries which they will use to push towards the technological frontier. And then finally, let me talk about the China-US tension. This China-US tension is actually basically non-economic. There's no real economics behind the call for decoupling between the US and China. And so countries like ours are asked to choose on the basis of a geostrategic rather than an economic criterion. Would we choose the US or will we choose China? You know, so that's a major issue that the US is trying to foist on us, and I think none of us should actually be pushed to make the choice. So that, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cheong, for the insightful info. We will now move on to Mr. Ng Sang Beng, CEO of Emulous Corporation, Sdn Bhd. Sang Beng is a negotiator and decision maker who is always ready to seize new opportunities. Sharp, witted, and curious, his affinity for electrical appliances and the first generation of mobile phones brought him down the path of tech entrepreneurship. It was a challenging journey for him to build Emulous from the ground up, but he persisted in pursuing his passion. Today, Emulous is a listed company on Bursa Malaysia. First question to you, Sang Beng. How can a business identify if they have the right fit to go into the E&E ecosystem? And should they invest in China?
Thank you, Dr. Sri. First of all, you know, what I would like to say is that when it comes to E&E sector, in Penang especially, in the past, we tend to actually try to look for opportunities so that we could actually support the ecosystem within Penang itself. But things have changed. A lot of things that we did last time, basically based on you know, certain things that are low end of technology, and it requires a lot of labor-intensive jobs. It has actually moved to design. And similarly, if in China, today's China is no longer the 5 years China, you know, the China that was 5 years ago. It is not the China that it was 10 years ago. And what happened is that there are a lot of smart people there. And things that we could do doesn't stop them from doing it. And at the same time, what really drives us to actually get into China is really about the technology that they still don't have. So what we think is that, first of all, we've got to look at what is exactly happening in China right now. So most of us actually look at it as in that a lot of subcons, a lot of factories actually move out from China. But what we actually probably don't realize is that China imports probably about $300 billion of semiconductor chips on a yearly basis. And that is even more than around $200 billion of imports of oil. So if you look at that, this becomes probably it's the largest import for China. And what happened is that because what had happened, especially during the past or since last year on the Huawei issues, this Made in China 2025 initiative was actually being expedited. So what they want to do is that to replace the 70% of the $300 billion semiconductor imports to be done actually locally. What it means simply means that whatever it used to import the chips, they wanted the local Chinese to actually design those parts to replace the import. And we are looking at, 70% of $300 billion is probably about $200 billion. And then we look at what actually is what is the opportunity that we have. In order to make every single 1 billion semiconductor chips from scratch, you probably need about 3 to 4 times similar amount to actually make that particular chip. So if you look at $200 billion of semiconductor to be replaced, that also means that there will be probably around $600 to $800 billion of funding needs to be actually poured into China. In foundries, in factories, in equipment, in testers, and in all the accessories that are associated with the semiconductor making. So we are looking at by 2025, 70% of them has to be replaced. So this is actually a golden opportunity for many of us to be able to actually get into the ecosystem and do something there. But now, is it that what is actually the typical requirements that we should actually ask ourselves? Number one, it's really to do with, do we actually have or equip ourselves with the right technology, which is special, which has the cutting edge technologies, which is competitive, something that they will require, or something that they are hungry for. And then the second question is that, it goes back to a very sensitive question as in, are you willing to share or even to give away that particular IPs or design? So these are the two things that, typically we all, when we look at that and we started to ask ourselves that by giving them the design, it simply means that we don't own anything anymore. But the way that I look at it is that, or at least aimless look at it is that, based on our internal valuation, this is something that we just try to actually gauge ourselves as in how much our IP actually worth. We probably look at tens of millions ringgit worth of IPs that we have. And what we need to do is that, what are the important ingredients that we are willing to share it or give away and put it in China, which means that it now belongs to China. When we do that, it actually doesn't mean that we are losing something, because we should actually use the money that we actually raise from there to actually innovate and actually create more IPs on our own. So it becomes like a flow of designs that we keep generating, and we actually what we do is that we localize those designs in China in a staggered way, and in a slowly, we actually move it to China. So to conclude, the first thing that we really need to ask ourselves is that, do we actually have something that they need, and which is technically tough, something that they couldn't do it? This is number one. Number two is that, are you really willing to share the IP with them? So these two parts are things that we should actually consider very carefully. Thanks, Dr. Sri.
Thank you, Sang-Ping, for your sharing. As you said, the new oil for China is semiconductor. Okay, this is surely very relevant to those who are planning to venture into China. Well, thank you for your sharing. We have our final panelist for tonight, Dr. Sri Lee Ka-chun. Dr. Sri Lee is a special investment advisor to the Chief Minister of Penang and Director of Invest Penang. He also sits on the board of various private companies and state government-linked companies across various industries, such as telecommunication, nurturing startups, wealth management, and manufacturing. Dr. Sri, it is good to have you joining us tonight. Can you share with us your views on, if a company decides to venture into China, what are some of the business cultures in China to be aware of and any pitfalls to avoid?
Thank you, Dr. Street. I just want to share some of at least 4 areas. I think there are more than that, but 4 areas. The number one is that I think all of us are very clear in terms of the culture that between the West and the East. So if you look at the Westerners, you can see that they have a different culture, language, religion to a certain extent. They are all different. And you look at China, China is a representative of the eastern part of the world. So you can see that culture, language, behavior, actually that cascade into the way business is being carried out. So they are all different. For example, in China, maybe they value more in terms of a relationship, whereas as far as the Western culture is concerned, they believe in transparency. So this is number one, is the difference in culture. Now we are lucky in the sense that as far as we Malaysian is concerned, we are in between. So we know the Western culture because of our colonization, that's one. The other one is that, of course, the language and the culture, we are quite familiar with it. Then we are also lucky because of our forefathers, be you Indian, be you Malay, be you Chinese, we are quite entrenched as far as the Eastern value is concerned, because this part of the world, we value, for example, the hierarchical relationship that we are practicing in our society. So as far as Malaysian is concerned, we are in the middle of East and West. So that gives us a certain advantage, either to link up the West to the East or alternatively from the East to the West. So that is one aspect of it. The second aspect is that you have to understand that the Chinese, as we know it today, is totally different. I would say that totally different from the Chinese culture that we know of from our forefathers. The reason is because the Chinese in the last 100 years has gone through a very speedy evolution, culturally as well as thought, thinking process, and etc. The reason is because for the past 100 years, you have the fall of the dynasty. Because under the empire, the dynasty, the thinking is totally different as compared with under the current one, the communism. And then because of the cultural revolution, actually has uprooted a lot of cultural practices and values of the Chinese past. So today's the Chinese is a new breed totally under this particular generation. That is the number two in terms of the people that you want to deal with in doing business. The number three is that if you look at China, the sheer size of China is one factor that you have to consider if you want to venture into China. Okay, all of us know that China is a big market, right? That is the positive side. But everything in China, positive or negative, you have to multiply it by 1.3 billion times. Why I say that is because you have a big market for you to be in that is 1.3 times positive, but you have the negative side that is also multiplied by 1.3 billion times. Why I say that is, for example, food security is one. The other one is also about pollution. Because there are so many people, then whatever problem that you have, it is going to be 1.3 billion times. So this is another aspect that if you want to invest in China, you have to be very clear of. The fourth aspect that I'm looking at is also investment in China is going to be long-term. Don't be misguided by the sheer market. A lot of people went into China thinking that there is a big market for them, and they got a bloody nose out of it, right? So the reason is very simple. I got a very good analogy from one of my friends. He said that if you are an Indonesian, you do business in Indonesia, your competition is only 10% because only 10% of the Chinese are doing business there. You only have 10% of competition there. If you do business in Malaysia, right, your competition is maybe 30% or 40%. In China, when you do business, your competition is 100% because you have 100% of the Chinese to fight you. And then the fighting is very, very tough because it is something like a relay race. You are alone, but on the other side, they have a relay of 1.3 billion people to wear you down. So investment in China, in short, it has to be long-term. There is no way for you to do hit and run. There is no way for you just to do it and hopefully that you can break in huge profit just in a short period of time. It just cannot be done. So these are the 4 items I think anyone who want to venture into China, they have to bear in mind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I just come up something on that?
Sure.
Yeah, so what Dr. Sri has actually mentioned is about, the 100% competition. So it's not just about long term, one of the things that I realized is that the boots on the ground is very, very important. So we all, especially for those that, many of us who we thought that we could speak Chinese language, we could write, we could read. And to be honest with you, it doesn't mean too much there, it doesn't mean too much there. At the end of the day, you really got to put your boots on the ground. And the other thing that I really, before I forget that I really got to highlight is that never thought of getting money out from China. So if you look at investment in China, you look at long term, and you will never want to think about how do I actually get money out of China. If you start thinking about that, it may actually fail a plan. It doesn't mean that you cannot take it out, but we shouldn't look at it as a big, gold mine and try to actually dig the gold from there. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really, thank you for your valuable insights. This will definitely be handy to those who are planning to have business dealings with China, the big market, but you're there for the long run, not hit and run. Okay. Now I'd like to pose a question to Sangbing. As you know, the Malaysian government established MAFCAP to nurture the venture capital ecosystem in the country so that the VCs can provide alternative fundings to help companies to grow. From your startup experience in MLS, can you share your experience how to use VC funds to help companies to grow and expand, especially to grow in overseas market? China is one example.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. So first of all is that the mentality of the first thing that I would like to say is that back in 16 years ago, we always have this kind of mentality as in, we told ourselves that, don't ever think about the VC fundings or any money that we get as a free money. It's not about that. It's really about why do you need the money? Why do you need the money? And actually, it should be started with what's the plan. Then you look at how much money do you need, and you look at what are the sources of funds that you could get. So that's the first step that we all actually should look at. Rather than we think about, if the money is there, why not just take it? If you don't take it, somebody else is going to take it. If you ever have that mentality, you should just walk away from funding. And for MAFCAP, I still think that MAFCAP looks at the VC funding that we look at. To get into China, why I got to say this as in, why not you get funding from the VCs in China? That would actually get you, number one, it would actually get you the connection, it would get you the network, it would get you the customer. So that is what you should be considering. Having said that, doesn't mean that the funding that you have, we are getting from locally, doesn't mean anything. What you could do is that you should actually focus on getting those money in R&D and technology. Building up a technology is actually everything. Of course, for us, I can't speak on behalf of service industry, but when it comes about product industry, I just think that we really have to think about what are the essence of the technology that we have. Many times we actually confuse ourselves between implementation and technology creation. For example, we talk about AI, we talk about artificial intelligence. Many of us call ourselves as in an AI company, you know, I'm in AI. But the thing is that, are we an implementer of AI algorithms, or we are the one who's actually modifying or combining algorithms and creating something different? So why not take the money and focus on the latter part that I mentioned, which is actually to create the technology that you have. That will actually strengthen yourself before you get into China. Thank you, Dr. Sri.
Thank you, Sambi, for your insightful inputs. Okay, I have a question from the floor. He said the US have done and will do everything that they can to stop China going too fast in AI and 5G development. Without US and their allies' cooperation in AI technology, how will China get the technology quick enough and not lag behind? What is China's short and long-term plan going forward? Anyone of the panelists, please?
I can speak a little bit on this. The AI in China, there are two things that we could talk about. The first one is that AI in China, they have started with AI education at the primary school, you know, that is in China. And I don't think we see that in the rest of the world. Number two, we just got to remind ourselves that the Double 11 festival by Alibaba, I hope you all remember that. It was probably about 2 years ago. What happened was that they broke a record of actually delivering, you know, at 12 o'clock, right at 12 o'clock, people start actually buying things. And the first delivery of the purchase was within 12 minutes. I can't remember, it's 12 to 15 minutes, which means that somebody placed an order at night, and within 12 to 15 minutes, he got his product. And all this was actually driven purely because of the AI, as in they actually try to look at the human pattern, including individuals' purchasing pattern, and they actually manage the warehouse automatically. I mean, AI driven. It's not by manual because the volume is too huge. So with that, I don't think that US should actually stop anything on AI algorithm, on AI development in China. Dr. Sri.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Anyone else would like to comment?
I just maybe want to interject a little bit on this particular issue as far as China and US is concerned. The important thing is that, this is my personal view, some of you might not agree with that. My personal view is that the Chinese they are very good in terms of implementation. Okay, so if you're talking about rail, they dare to try. They might compromise on the safety, but they dare to try. They have the money, they put it into place, and then they move the project because it is a centrally controlled system, so they can do it very fast. So within 20, 30 years, the whole China is actually connected up by these bullet train. So that is one. The other one is that because of the sheer size of the economy, they can move things very fast as well. So for example, AI and others, automation, they have the economic muscle to really move things in the sense that if the government want to put money into a certain aspect of the technology, they have the market in order to absorb and also to use it. They have the money to implement it. So in that aspect, I think that China is, no one can compete with China. But I think at the end of the day, the important thing is that you go back to the fundamental, whether you have the technology in order for you to move forwards or not. So for example, you have the train, but if you look at the train, correct, I mean, I hope that I'm not wrong, that the technology in terms of a math lab, we talk about bullet train and all those, is a very much Japanese and German, right? So it is adoption of a technology. In terms of the E&E, I think we have seen it in some aspect. The fundamental thing is about the chips. Without the chips, can China still move forward or not? So these is some of the, I think, the basic questions that we have to ask. But at the end of the day, as in this particular world, we hope that the Chinese and the Americans can work together for the prosperity of the whole world. But the situation is that if you come down to in terms of technology, then I think we still have to ask the questions, what are you good at? The Chinese, my personal view is that good in implementation, but in terms of the core technology, I think the Chinese still have a way to catch up.
Thank you, Dr. Sri. It looks like China have a lot of challenges moving forward, yeah, especially in the E&E industry, and as you say, the semiconductor IC chip. Another question from the floor is, okay, is China seeing Malaysia as a low-cost region among other Asia's countries, other Asia countries, or their investment based on appreciation of Malaysia's semiconductors profession, especially in Penang, and willing to come with higher costs?
Maybe I can chip in on this particular question. I think all the time when you talk about, I always believe that cheap things are no good. Good things are not cheap. Okay, so that is one. And as far as Penang is concerned, as far as Malaysia is concerned, we have to be very clear. We are not going to fight on cheap, because there is no, you just can't fight it. And this is not the nature of how we move a country. In order to move the country economically, we have to make sure that we are value add rather than go on competition for cheap. How low can you go? That is not what we want. So that is number one. Then number two is that I think as a nation, what we need to do is that we have to focus on how to value add. So in that sense, things will move up, but we still have the competitive advantage. Because, for example, as I said today, Penang compared with Singapore, in terms of cost, we are very competitive, right? In terms of human talent, we are not losing that much out. We are equally good, right? Actually, a lot of Singapore enterprises, manufacturers, they also employed Penang guys as well. So in that sense, with that competitive advantage that we have, that is the way to go for us to be good competitively, cost-wise, we are competitive enough in order for us to stay in the game. That is where we want to go, not to fight on only the cost.
Okay, thank you. I have two other questions here. How is the US-China trade war affecting the semiconductor industry? And you can tag this question along. What is China doing right in the semiconductor industry? Dr. Cheong or Sangbing, okay.
Sure. I think that it's a very clear on things that we mentioned just now. The Made in China 2025, The Economist magazine, they actually published this a couple of weeks ago. They call this as a Xenomics, right? Xi Jinping, Xenomics. And in this Xenomics, what happened is that since 2012, the rate tape has been trimmed, and it only takes 9 days to set up a company right now in China. I mean, it's surprising to most of us. And he has actually shifting to a sharp focus on supply chain choke points, which means that whichever places that they have it's actually the bottleneck, they will clear it out. And they do it in a very effective way, and it's like a top-down instruction, and they clear it. But that doesn't mean that America can't actually survive. I mean, as in they are going to win over China, US. I would like to talk a little bit more on this together with some of the questions about is the JV benefiting AMILAS? So let me show it this way. Malaysia, it's actually at the center of the crossing point between China and US. Why do I say that? Right now, we do see that a huge surge of inquiries from companies based in US to actually starting testing, manufacturing in Malaysia itself. So this is one. At the same time, what we do see is that, we have been in MCO for many months. And as you can see that no one could fly outside of the country, including myself, which I used to travel like really a lot. But just to share this good news with everyone that we have actually secured a $1.3 million of booking during MCO in China. We have actually secured, $500,000 of booking from Taiwan and China during this period of time. So the JV really, it's a game changer for Amelus. This is just to talk about Amelus itself. And the other questions that I see is that about what is actually Amelus' strategy for the next 10 years. What we will look at is that the JV would actually propel us, most likely will help us to actually propel our business in China. You should look at the JV as the China version of Amelus. And I'm actually the CEO for both companies, for the JV and for Amelus itself. So this is something that I think that we are very confident in terms of the prospect of this semiconductor industry, both in China and in Malaysia. Thank you, Dr. Sri. You want to unmute your mic, Dr. Sri?
Sorry, Dr. Chum, do you want to add to what is China doing right, or how the trade war is affecting
What's that?
Do you want to add about that?
the semiconductor industry?
Yeah. I think actually the so-called trade war is not about trade. It is basically, to me, it is a method of trying to contain the rise of China. And so whatever you argue about this and that really doesn't really matter. I think the US was surprised initially by the amount of advances that the Chinese have made in some areas, not that Chinese are not ahead in semiconductors, but in things like AI, in some electric batteries and stuff like that. Even space technology, China's already ahead. And I remember very early on, there was a question that Trump had asked, why don't we have an American company that can compete with Huawei? And nobody could give him an answer. So this is actually a real threat, both psychological as well as real, to the America, what it's all about.
Dr. Jiang, thank you for sharing your view. I will go to the next question from the floor. Is Malaysia attractive enough to bring China investors to set up high-tech factories compared to ASEAN countries? If yes, what are the exact skills Malaysia have to attract investors to decide to invest in Malaysia? I guess this goes to really.
Exactly. Let me share some information, some data that I collected on supply chains, the electronics. You know, over the last few years, actually, the value added that Malaysia imparts on the supply chains to China is falling. So our technology is actually falling behind what the Chinese are doing. So it's a fact. I mean, you can look at the value added in Malaysian exports of electronics. The proportion is falling over the last few years.
Okay.
So we still have a lot of catching up to do.
Okay, sure. Dr. Sri, you want to add your views to this question? Is Malaysia attractive?
Actually, there are 2 points that I wish to make. There is one, as far as a Chinese company is concerned, in terms of the technology and all those, if they are big companies, somehow if you investigate further, eventually you will see that they are somehow connected to the government. It's government backed. So a lot of a strategic decision that is made on investment, sometimes it is between the company as well as the greater strategic decision of the country. So that is number one, whether they will come out to invest or not. The number two is that actually if you look at the Chinese company, they want to come out, and whether we will welcome them here or not. We also have to look at us internally. whether we have the capability and the capacity to really absorb what the Chinese want to invest in. It is very important, bearing in mind that the Chinese have 1.3 billion people. Malaysia has only 35 million people, right? So then of course, if you look at engineers, my understanding is that in the Shanghai, Beijing area, every year you have about 1 million graduates. In Malaysia, every year we only have, the most is about 20,000 engineers. So if we want to do the scale of things that the Chinese are doing, it is definitely not for Malaysia. We just can't cope. I think we have to be realistic about it. So that's why we have to fit into the Chinese competition is we would like to go into the niche area. We are not going into the big and then cost effective way of competition, but we want to move into area whereby we are niche in the sense that those things that is high mix and low volume. Those things that we can have more value add in order to support the Chinese as well as the Americans. So that should be the niche that we need to go in as far as the E&E is concerned, and not the big companies that we want to attract them to be here, whereby they need 10,000 workers or 15,000 workers. That we want, but we can't. That I think we have to realize that.
Okay, thank you for sharing this interesting thought. You need to be niche and not just go for everything. Just make sure that there's bring value to Malaysia. Okay, we have another question here on our question on the golden ticket. You know, China and the world are all suffering economically. How can we be sure that semiconductors are the golden ticket? What if there is a world depression or recession happen? And coupled with the question of looking into 2021, will you see a market recovery?
Okay, can I take this question? So I just want to share one thing that, you know, this is also from The Economist. It actually says that actually China is actually less harmed by the tariff war than expected. In fact, IMF forecasted a growth of 1% in 2020 as compared to 8% drop in America. So this is what actually is happening in China right now. So we talk about you know, economy downturn, anything in China. So something that I just want to remind all of us is that the 2025, the gist of the 2025, it's in a replacement mode. It has nothing to do with growth or, you know, or any, you know, anything that comes down. It doesn't matter because it is actually in a total replacement mode, which means that $200 billion of semiconductors will be replaced. So we are looking at when it comes to replacement mode, it means that it doesn't matter whether the demand is high or the demand is low, because the demand will never get to zero. So, and just want to talk a little bit about talk about the copycat thing, right? There's a question about the copycat, as in when we start selling our, you know, when we start selling our IPs to China, wouldn't they that they are going to copy the design or anything like that? So I just want to, I can only speak on behalf of Emulus, as in the JV that we have. The JV itself is being perceived and is being regarded as a local Chinese company. So it is not a foreign investment company. It is actually a local Chinese company. There's no point to copy anything, because once we actually push the IPs to there, and we have 40% of the company, so it means that 40% of the IP still belongs to Emulus. So hopefully, you know, this could actually clear some of your doubts. And the other thing that the questions asked about, what is the actually advice to the SME, especially when we look at what is happening in China. I would think that China is not for everyone. All right, I can only speak on behalf of my personal view. China is really not for everyone. Like I mentioned, I still think that there are still a lot of opportunities, right? Especially what had happened in Penang, as you can see that the foreign investment actually tops the entire country. The effort that we have been doing, the people that we have here, the knowledge that we have in Penang is actually a big attraction. In fact, there are a lot of companies in US-based or even China-based companies who are more than willing to actually invest in Malaysia or in Penang. There are still a lot of opportunity that are for all the SMEs. What we need to do right now is that we got to be more hardworking than everyone else. We got to think that there's just no tomorrow. Tomorrow doesn't exist anymore. What we need to do is that we need to grab as much as we could today. So that is basically my advice to everyone.
Thank you. Anyone would like to add about the what if there's a world depression and looking into 2021?
Maybe I just want to add a little bit on here about the golden ticket, about semiconductor, about the future of 2021. Personally, I am very, very optimistic about 2021. Yes, for 2020, we have wasted 2020 because of COVID. Somehow we just have to come up from COVID, right? Whether we accept it as a norm or alternatively a vaccine or something, a cure has to be found. If it is not, then we just have to accept it as part of the challenge that we as a human race has to face. Once that is over, then the next challenge is actually the trade war. How do we deal with the trade war? So that will have an effect on the economy, worldwide economy. But overall, my thinking is that we are at the inflection point of a technological breakthrough, right? And this technological breakthrough is huge. It's from all directions, and they are all semicon based, right? I name a few. AI, artificial intelligence, is big, right? You look at automation, it's big, right? In terms of robotics and all those coming in. You look at electric vehicle, it's big. You just imagine that if one day you want to replace all the vehicles in the world with electric vehicle, you just imagine that how much economic generations that you can do about that. 5G is huge as well, because these are all new frontier that we have to look at. Renewable energy, right? That comes in, be it solar, be it wind, whatever it is, and then storage that comes with this renewable energy, blockchain. So it's all aspect, and we are at the inflection point, right? So irrespective of how the economy goes, no matter there is a depression or whatnot coming in, I think personally, this evolution will ride through whatever depression, whatever is coming, whether you like it or not, because it's just unstoppable. That is my thinking.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. There's a question on JV for Emulous. I think you've answered that. There's also a question on IP. I think something you've answered that.
Yep.
But there's one specific question here about IP. How to protect the valuable IP, since the Chinese are known to be copycats, and how do you value the IP? So there's always this risk. US is claiming that the Chinese also copy the IP or take the IP. Is there any way of protecting yourself in China?
We are when it comes to, for Emulous, when it comes to IP, we are in the 5G, we're in the RF testing technology. Can they copy? Yes. But can they do it and duplicate? No, as of now. But can they do it in the future? Definitely, yes. So why the reason I say this is that when it comes to testers, right? When it comes to testers, and very specifically when you talk about RF testers, they are really, really just a handful of companies in the world who could actually do it. We are talking about 5G testing solutions. And for China itself, they look at non-American, non-Japanese, non-European, because these are the three regions that are going against them. So who else in this world that have long enough history in the RF testing probably we think that it's only 8 million. So that is definitely a good point for us to actually get into that. But when it comes to IP copying, I would actually say that rather than we talk about stopping people from copying, we should think about how do we compete with them? How do we actually get ahead of them? And that is the only solution. It's basically, I mean, when it comes to this kind of competition, you're just going to work hard. If you don't work hard, somebody's going to overtake you. So there's no way to actually protect an IP at all. The only thing is that most of the IP that we actually claim is actually based on trade secret rather than patent. But internally in the company, the next 2 years, we are going to churn up a lot of patents so that, and we are going to churn up those patents and register those patents in China alone, only in China alone. Why do I say that? Like what I mentioned just now, since 2012, the court cases about IP infringement has been actually, it actually increased fivefold since 2012. It simply means that within China itself, let's not talk about the rest of the world, in China itself, IP is now being regarded as something that it belongs to someone. You cannot just take it and copy. And what Genomics is trying to do is that to show that it's actually very business friendly. So that is what happened right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Question on IP, and then now into supply chain. The question on just now, Dr. Cheong, you said that the amount of parts that we ship to China is dropping. How can Malaysian companies integrate into China's manufacturing 2025 supply chain as it localizes the semiconductor components in the E&E sector?
Okay.
Dr. Cheong, you want to say something?
So what's the question?
Can you ask him to repeat the question?
Okay, I said that how can Malaysian company integrate into China's manufacturing 2025 supply chain? Just now you said that we have been dropping. So how can we catch up and participate in their supply chain as they localize semiconductor components in the E&E sector?
Quite tough.
Okay, maybe Sang-Beng, yeah, I think you are ready to tackle that question. Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the phrase that we talk about is made in China 2025.
Yes.
So
yeah.
Made in China, okay? So it simply means that boots on the ground, you're going to be in China. If you want to be in their ecosystem, that's, I mean, the direct way is that you're going to be there. And how to be there, then there are, of course, many ways to do it. And of course, those who are interested, if you would like to visit us at our new place, then we can have a coffee talk and we can talk about that further.
Okay, thank you. All right, the question here is on the biggest risk when the Malaysian E&E companies deal with China semicon companies. I'm not sure just now, Dr. Lee Zarusarili, you address that issue, the biggest risk?
Actually, the biggest risk for us is in terms of, I go back to size again. We have to be very careful about the Chinese competition. That is, maybe at the beginning, you can be partnership, but the chances for you to be gobbled up by them is high. So you have to think about that as well. So that actually goes back to just now about the IP as well. I totally agree with Sang-Beng that IP protection is actually is born out of the capitalism system, right? Take a very simple example. For example, the COVID vaccine. If you are a capitalist, then of course you would like to have the patent so that you can make money out of it. But if it is another, let's say, a socialist system, then it is for humanity. So once you find a solution, you share it with the whole human race. So that is actually the fundamental of patent, copyrights, etc., etc. So that is only one aspect. But overall, my point is that actually it is not about your idea, your patent, and your copyright, maybe for short term, you have an advantage. But at the end of the day is how fast, how speedy can you implement it to make sure that it can move the flywheel to your advantage. That I think is the issue. That is a lot of people, that's why a lot of people are saying that it is no longer a world of big fish eating small fish. It is how fast the fish can move that eat up the rest of the fish. So it is yes, on the one hand, it's about copyright, it is about patent, but it's only give you the initial advantage, but not too long, because a lot of people will come in because there are a lot of ideas going around. So that is my take.
So it's not about how big the fish is, more how fast and the speed that you're moving. Thank you very much, Dr. Salim.
If you look at America now, right? GE is supposed to be a very, very strong company. It's a conglomerate. They are in defense, they are in everything. You look at them, what happened now, right? So this is one example. It is no longer, your size. It is how nimble-footed you are, how fast you can react to the technology that just now I mentioned, in order for you to move in, for you to expand and implement your project as soon as you can. Because by implementation, you'll be able to bring in more and more idea and implement the idea. Idea is for implementation. Idea is not for you to make money by sitting there.
Okay, thank you. We have many more questions, so I would like to just maybe extend this session for another 10 minutes to cover as many questions as possible. There's one question again on, since we are talking about semiconductor, the golden ticket, how do Invest Penang facilitate investment into semiconductor companies in Penang? Directed to you, Dr. Srili.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sri. For that question, actually, it's very simple. We were very lucky because since 1970s, we have already moved into this semiconductor sphere. So over a period of time, we have actually learned the trade, and then a lot of people like you, Dr. Sri, has moved on, and you have actually mentored different level of technocrat to come in to run this industry. Then, of course, there's a lot of knowledge transfer. There's a lot of movement, learning, etc., etc. So it's good. So as far as we are concerned, we are very lucky. We have the talent in order, like Sambeng is also part of this. He could be maybe the latest generation, and he is actually nurturing another generation coming up. So it is the mentoring, the teaching, and the cascading of knowledge from one generation to the other. That is the core value of Penang semiconductor industry. That make us different from others. So this is something that we have, and that by itself actually attract a lot of investment into semiconductor into Penang, because we have the talent, and the talent is actually very diverse. So we are looking at semiconductor, but semiconductor is just the foundation, it's just the base industry that we have in Penang. Today, we are already moved into aerospace. For example, Honeywell, for example, SAM and all those, they are already here. Then we are moving into medical devices. The top-end medical devices company are here. And then, of course, you have semiconductor, etc., etc., which is the base. So if you look at it, we are no longer a semiconductor center already. From this foundation of a semiconductor, we have built different industry. Solar energy, this which is in renewable. Just now we talk about these medical devices. Then of course we are talking about others as well. So we are, and because of all this clustering effect, by itself it becomes a natural choice of the destination of choice for people to come as far as electronics is concerned, or anything to do with electronics. It is very attractive to them.
Thank you. I think this next question, I think, goes to Sangbing, asking when is it a good time to invest in semiconductor industry? And there is also a doubt about what really makes semiconductor a good investment opportunity as compared to other investments.
Okay, so, thank you. First of all, I want to make it short on this. Is that definitely if you talk about investment in semiconductor, I personally I'll invest now, and I'll invest tomorrow. Not as in like tomorrow, as in tomorrow, but as in the future, I'll continue to invest in semiconductor. Just give you one little thing that to let you understand why do I say so. Remember the 2G phone of Nokia? That's the semiconductor in the value of semiconductor inside a 2G phone was 70 cents, US cents, right? 70 cents. And today, on a top-notch 5G phone, sub-6, which is not millimeter wave 5G phone, the ingredient is $32 US, all right? It's actually $32 US for the RF front-end devices, which is the part that we are actually testing right now. So I'm talking about 2G was 70 cents. If you look at even 4G LTE, it was $16. But with a 5G sub-6 phone, we are talking about $32. So it's already doubled up from 4G to 5G. So that actually tells you that this industry is actually an accumulative industry, because any phone that has 5G ingredients, they also need to have to support 4G, 3G, and so on. So I think that everything is actually electronics now, everything, including our clothing. So I mean, for me personally, I'll invest now or invest tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone who would like to add anything to this? Okay, another question is, I think to you, Sangbing.
Okay.
Does Malaysia have the right technology and competitive cutting edge to benefit from China's replacement of 70% imported chips? And also, please comment on China's IP. I think you have commented on China's IP.
Yeah, sure.
What is
what I think is that first thing, boots on the ground, right? Boots on the ground. If you're not there, it's a bit tough, right? It's a bit tough. Number two is that do you have the right technology? I think that Malaysian, especially Penang Semiconductor, these are all, we just have lots of very talented companies like Inari, companies like Panda Master, MI Equipment, Vitrox, these are all, I mean, from Aimless, when we compare to them, we are just very, very small compared to them. These are all our seniors, in this industry. So I definitely think that Malaysia has the right technologies to actually proceed. Just that the only thing that we have, and the biggest problem we have right now, is that our millennials mentality. All right, the immediate gratitude, the immediate what do you call that? They wanted to be rewarded immediately. So that is actually the biggest challenge that we have right now as compared to the youngsters in China. Right, they're hungry, they're passionate, they just want to make a better living for themselves. But look at here, look at my son, look at everyone's son and daughters, it's a bit tough.
Not as hungry. Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Now we have the challenge of the millennials. I think I'll go. There are many more questions. I think I'll just take this last question. It has to do with funding. Okay, there are a few questions actually on funding. In any business, funding available from either Malaysia or China government to support Malaysian SME business in China, or any related information you can share, on how SME can be helped to grow and not just China but go overseas.
I think, yeah, something you want to say something?
No, I was about to say that you should be the best person to answer.
Okay.
No, actually in Malaysia, what you need to do is that if you're not very clear, always go to the government agency and then check with them. For example, if you're SME, try to go to SME corporation and then sit down with them. They will be able to let you know what are the incentives that is being given by the government. Then of course you have an idea what are the supports that the government has already put in place. Go and visit them. It's free of charge. You don't have to worry. There is no commitment. So that is part of it. Now, from my personal experience and also with Sangbing as well, we also have a company called in Malaysia called Malaysia Debt Venture. Malaysia Debt Venture is a $1.5 billion lending company that is funding technology in Malaysia. So what we do is that some of these technology, the traditional bank would not fund. For example, at the initial stage of LSS 1, 2, 3, the local, the large solar scheme that is being rolled out by the government, they can't get funding from the traditional bank, so they come to a company like Malaysia Debt Venture, so they can borrow from Malaysia Debt Venture. So that is one of it. But overall, it is an organization whereby it's funded by the government. Then we lend out money in order to support technology. So anything with technology. So companies, for example, businesses that we have supported are like, for example, is renewable energy. We support hydro, we support electrical, we support anything that is that. Then, of course, we also support Industrial 4.0. We also support apps, for example, all the parking apps, for example, e-Tanah, those sort of technology can also come and talk to MTB. So my short answer to that is that don't be shy to approach some of the agencies that has been created by the government. You are not losing anything by talking to them, and I can assure you that you will gain a lot.
Okay, thank you. Good. We have a lot of avenues actually to get funding, either from government or from the VCs or Malaysian Debt Venture or even MTDC. Okay, I just read this last one because this one seems to be a burning question, came up a couple of times. I would say before we end, please answer this question. How receptive are Chinese firms investing in Malaysia, particularly in the semiconductor segment? And in what areas that we have an advantage? What should Malaysia or firms in Malaysia do to ride this opportunity?
What advantage?
So is the question of Chinese company investing in Malaysia or the other way around?
Yes. Chinese company investing in Malaysia. Are they receptive to come to Malaysia? And what advantage do we have to attract them?
Dr. Sri Lee, you want to...
Okay, I think thank you, Sang Mei. So I have a few points on this in terms of the Chinese investment out of China. I think the first thing that you have to understand is that the Chinese companies that are coming out are made out of two types of companies. One is that they are already established in China, so that they are looking for area for them to expand in overseas market expansion. One. The second type of company are those companies that more or less cannot survive in China, right? Are being marginalized, or they want to phase them out. So those, in quote, dirty technology, right? Or dirty industry. So Chinese want to push them out. So these are the two types of companies that are coming out. So for us, we would like, from our side, we would like to partner with those Chinese companies that looking for expansion for the rest of the world, apart from China, right? So we partner with them and conquer the world. That is what we want to do. We want to partner with a Chinese company together in order to conquer the world. That is what we want. So in Penang, we are very lucky because they find it very easy for them to do business here. We have many Chinese companies here. In terms of the solar company, JA, Jinko, and the like. We also have a medical company in order like Mi Hao. They are doing all those breathing apparatus for Australian brand. So they want to come out, but you have to find the proper partner, and then you have to be careful and you ask yourself, are these companies coming out to expand their business, or are these companies because they cannot survive anymore in China?
Thank you very much. We have run out of time. Still a lot of questions. Thank you for a very interesting and insightful discussion. Thank you everyone for sending in your questions. That's all the time we have for tonight. Before we part, I would like each panelist to give any advice to our viewers. 1 minute advice. Who would like to start? Sangbei, let's go.
Okay, sure. For me, it go back to entrepreneurship. Is that work hard, and like I would like to repeat this, is that success is only happen when opportunity meet with preparation. So if you are not prepared, you just miss it. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Cheong. Any 1 minute advice to the viewers?
Yes. I don't particularly want to pour cold water on the proceedings tonight, but personally, I'm not particularly optimistic about our semiconductor industry breaking into China. However, there is one major development that is of interest to us. China has seen a lot of success in online and all kinds of IT related activities. However, Southeast Asia, the rate of using online things is increasing very fast. So it is quite possible that a lot of Chinese companies would come to Southeast Asia to try to replicate the experience in China. And so it is an area which is quite promising for us. In terms of semiconductors and all that, I don't think we have any hope of getting close to them. We just don't. We don't have enough human capital. Our human capital is also not even as good as they have. But for this area of expansion, online trading and things like that, many Chinese companies are looking at Southeast Asia as the next boom market. So there's an opportunity for us there.
Thank you for sharing a different view and the challenging one that we have for Malaysia. Dr. Sri, Lee.
Hello, Sri. Thank you very much. I'm very optimistic about the future. Right. First of all, as I said, that there is an inflection point of a new technology, new frontier being conquered. That will create a lot of opportunity. That's number one. Number two is that the world is flush with liquidity. There's plenty of money. Every country is printing money, and then there's a lot of helicopter money. There's no shortage of money. So you have the money, you have the technology, you have the opportunity. I'm very optimistic. Yes, in the near future, you might have volatility, but in the longer term, I am very, very positive.
Yes, seize the opportunity, and the time is now. Really. Thank you very much, panelists, for sharing your insights. And thank you, everyone, for your participation. We hope you have gained some valuable takeaways and which are relevant to you. So I will now pass over to the host for tonight.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sri Wong Siu Hai, for moderating such an interesting discussion. And also thank you to our three speakers for the night, Mr. Hu Sanbing, Dr. Sri Lee Ka-chun, and Dr. Cheong Ki Chok. I'm sure that our audience managed to learn a lot from them today. So we hope this series will drive public interest to move up the value chain and to remain competitive in the economy. We have more China series to come in the months ahead, so do follow us on Facebook to find out the upcoming session. Before we end, please help us complete the evaluation poll, which will appear on your screen right now. Thank you so much to Emulus for supporting us and making tonight's session possible. It is actually a great effort in championing and empowering local businesses. So good night, everyone, and do stay safe.
Night, everyone.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
This one again?